My dear students of 8A and 8B, I am going to re-explain the same lesson because this lesson is very important for you to understand all the points perfectly. That's why for your conveniences, I decided to re-explain the same lesson once again. As per the following points, I am going to re-explain the following lesson. As per the following points. Number 1, subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, policy of paramountcy, outright wars, first to fourth Anglo-Mysore wars, first to third Anglo-Maratha wars, first to second Anglo-Sikh wars. Under the following points, I am going to re-explain this lesson. You know, the British decided to capture almost all parts of India because they felt the pulse of Indian rulers. The British realized it that almost all Indian rulers were weak and they had no unity. And those who were trying to get themselves united, the British weakened them. The British, in order to weaken the regional kingdoms, sent many governor generals. And then the governor generals also framed new policies in order to annex Indian territories. The first one, the subsidiary alliance. Who did it? Who introduced the subsidiary alliance? My dear students, you know it very well. It was Lord Wellesley who introduced the subsidiary alliance. Lord Wellesley introduced the subsidiary alliance, and Lord Wellesley framed certain terms of the subsidiary alliance. Now, point number 1, the British forced some Indian rulers to accept or to sign the terms of the subsidiary alliance. As a result of it, Indian rulers accepted the British as the supreme power. There are certain points of the subsidiary alliance. Number 1, the British would surrender, the Indian rulers would never be able to sign any secret alliance with other powers. And before doing it, they were supposed to consult the British. The Indian rulers should have to accept the terms of maintaining British troops at their cost. Besides, there would be office of the British resident in their court, and they would have to maintain the expenditure of the office of the British resident. They also agreed to maintain all the terms without making disagree, and ultimately almost all parts of Indian territories, Indian kingdoms came under British control, and Indian rulers, they lost their independence. practically by the year 1856, all the Indian states had either been annexed or had entered into the alliance with the company. So the British had, become the supreme power, and the Indian princes were reduced to puppets. So these are the consequences of the subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley. The Indian rulers later realized that the terms where they signed, it was of no use to them, because actually by signing the terms of the subsidiary alliance, they lost their independence. Virtually they lost their independence. The second one, the doctrine of lapse. Who introduced the doctrine of lapse? Lord Dalhousie introduced the doctrine of lapse. Who was Lord Dalhousie? Lord Dalhousie was the Governor General of India. He was sent to India as the new Governor General, and he then introduced another expansionist policy, the doctrine of lapse. Now, what is the meaning of, what are the terms of the doctrine of lapse? What do you mean by the doctrine of lapse? According to this doctrine, heirs adopted without the consent of the British Company, East India Company, could inherit only the private property of the deceased ruler, but not the entire territory. Only the private property they could inherit, but not the entire parts or entire territory of the ruler. As a result of it, Jhansi, whose ruler suddenly died without leaving any natural heir to the throne or legal heir to the throne, the widowed Rani was pensioned up, and then the adopted son Anand Rao was not, recognized by the British as the legal heir to the throne of Jhansi. The widowed Rani of Jhansi felt insulted. That's why he declared war against the British. He said, I shall not leave 1 inch of land of Jhansi without fighting against the British until I am getting defeat, until the British is able to defeat me. I must not leave 1 inch of land of Jhansi. I would sacrifice my life, but never surrender before the British. So ultimately what he quoted, he proved it. He fought bravely against the British, but the British ultimately was able to defeat and kill her, and by this way Jhansi was annexed by the British. In the same way, some states of India, they came under the British control. These states were Satara, Jaipur, Sambalpur, Jhansi, Nagpur. These were the states of India. These all all came under the terms of the subsidiary, came under the terms of the doctrine of lapse. And the British, annexed these territories, these states. So this caused discontent among the Indian people, among the rulers as well as Indian people, and hence the British East India Company headquarters sent Lord Hastings as the new Governor General. On reaching India, Lord Hastings changed the former policy of Lord Wellesley and Lord Dalhousie. He adopted the policy of paramountcy. Now, what is the policy of paramountcy? Outright wars. Come and fight and defeat us. But you have no right, you will not have any right to criticize the British, since the Britishers were superior to you. They challenged the authority of Indian rulers. You come and fight us. If you are able to fight us, if you are able to defeat us, we are ready. You are ready to bear up all the insults you would make for us. But if you are defeated by the British, if the British are able to prove their political superiority and supremacy, then you would not have any right to criticize the British. This policy of outright or policy of paramountcy, Lord Hastings adopted, and he defeated so many Indian rulers, and then he expanded British territories in India. But the amount of expenditure, the amount and the expenditure of war could not satisfy the British East India headquarters at last, because they did not favor the policy of declaring war by spending money. They wanted to drain Indian wealth to their country England, but immediately they decided to stop Indian people to use any language against them. That's why Lord Hastings adopted the policy of paramountcy. Temporarily, the people of India were satisfied. They realized that really the Britishers were superior to them and they were inferior. But at the end of the Governor Generalship of Lord Hastings, who came? Lord Dalhousie came as a new Governor General of India and adopted the policy of doctrine of lapse. Initially, he adopted the policy of doctrine of lapse as a Governor General, and according to this doctrine, Lord Dalhousie did not allow anyone else to be the heir to the throne without the consent of the company. That means, as per the terms of the doctrine of lapse, heirs adopted without the consent of the company could inherit only the private property, but not the entire territory of the deceased ruler. Jhansi protested against it, raised her sword against the British, but sacrificed her life. The widowed Rani of Jhansi, Lakshmi Bai, sacrificed her life while fighting against the British. And later on, so many Indian states came under British control. So the British by this way annexed their territories in India. And next one, there were four wars fought between Mysore and British East India Company. Hyder Ali started antagonism against the British. But ultimately, during the second Anglo-Mysore War, Hyder Ali died, and his son Tipu Sultan continued struggling against the British. So more two battles also fought between the British and the ruler of Mysore. Tipu Sultan ultimately, while protecting his capital, Seringapatam, he was defeated and killed. So, by this way, during the fourth Anglo-Mysore War, the entire parts of Mysore came under British control. The next one, Anglo-Maratha War. 3 Anglo-Maratha wars took place between the British and the Marathas. During the first Anglo-Maratha War, both the two sides failed to achieve success, but the British proved that they were superior to the Marathas. During the second Anglo-Maratha War, the Marathas considered a crushing defeat against the British East India Company. And during third Anglo-Maratha War, third and last Anglo-Maratha War, the fate of the Marathas, the British sealed. And hence, almost all parts of the Marathas were occupied by the British. Ultimately, they accepted the terms of subsidiary alliance and signed. And next one, the two wars took place between the British and the Sikhs, the first Anglo-Sikh War and the second Anglo-Sikh War. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, who was the founder ruler of the Sikh kingdom, signed a treaty between East India Company and the Sikh kingdom. But ultimately, under the terms of the Treaty of Amritsar, the British had no right to take part in internal political crisis of the Sikhs. And in fact, the British never interfered internal political crisis of the Sikhs. But Maharaja Ranjit Singh suddenly died, and because of his sudden death, the British decided to interfere internal politics of the Sikhs in order to weaken them. As a result of it, 2 battles were taken place between the British and the Sikhs. First Anglo-Sikh War and second Anglo-Sikh War. Both the 2 wars favored the British East India Company, and the Sikhs were completely defeated. So the entire parts of the powerful Sikh kingdom came under British control. And one state was left, that was Ayodhya. The Nawab of Ayodhya was a very peaceful one. Earlier he signed the terms of the subsidiary alliance, and he was confident enough that the British would never annex his territory since he signed the subsidiary alliance. But suddenly Lord Dalhousie decided to annex Ayodhya because of its income, huge revenue, taxes, and huge natural resources. They became very much greedy. So by bringing false allegations against the Nawab of Ayodhya, Lord Dalhousie annexed Ayodhya. Now, what was the allegation of Lord Dalhousie against the Nawab of Ayodhya? His allegation was that The Nawab of Ayodhya failed to establish law and order in his kingdom. And due to the allegations of misgovernance, his territory, Ayodhya, is annexed. It was the, arguments, and showed this reason Lord Dalhousie showed. Although the people of India, not only the rulers of India, but almost all people of India, they grew offended against the policy of subsidiary alliance, against the policy of, doctrine of lapse, against the policy of alleged misrule, pretext of alleged misrule. But ultimately, the British annexed the entire parts of India and became the master of Indian subcontinent. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.